Welcome to No Todo se cura con Vex. This podcast is not intended to be used as a therapy session. We are sharing our experiences, journeys, and the resources that helped us. We strongly encourage our listeners to find a licensed therapist if they are being called to begin or dig deeper into their self-discovery journey.
Hello, hi, it's Jessie.
It is Maggie.
And it's Heidi.
And we are the co-hosts of No Todo se cura con Vex.
Vex, yes.
Welcome back. This is a very interesting episode, but before we start the episode, right, talk about the topic, just want to give thanks to all of those who have left amazing reviews.
Yes.
And has rate this podcast. We are so grateful. We are so grateful and happy to have you follow us and support us. Thank you so much for the love and the support. We want to create a community. So please continue to rate and review and let us know more about what you would like to hear us talk about, what topics you would like us to talk about. You know, you can email us at notodosecuraconvex@gmail.com, or you can send us a DM on Instagram, Facebook,
TikTok,
Instagram, and YouTube.
Yeah, don't forget to also subscribe on YouTube. All of the if you want to see us, our faces, what we look like, go onto YouTube. No Todo se cura con Vex, and every single podcast episode is on YouTube.
Yes. Along with like little behind the scenes stuff that you guys would definitely get a kick out of. Yes.
Absolutely. So once again, thank you so much for all the love and the support. We really, really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And also a little shout out to those that have helped us with our creativity and just the behind the scenes situations. You all know who you are. Thank you. So much love to you guys because we really appreciate all that support.
Yes, it wouldn't be possible. Or it will be very, very hard without
Thank you. So
the help
we
of those
see
people.
you, we hear you, and we love you.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, so this topic is going to be very interesting, but I must say that if in any way this topic brings things up for you, right, it's going to be an emotional topic. So if it does bring things up for you, please make sure to take care of yourself. If you need to pause and stop and listen to the rest of the episode, that's okay. We want to make sure that you are taking care of yourself first. That's what matters.
Yes.
But we really thought about our experiences, and we thought about our culture and our community and our family. And I think this is a topic that we barely talk about as a community, and we need to start talking about it. The stigma has to stop.
Absolutely. Yes. Totally agree.
Yeah, to be better people, to accept who we are as individuals, but also as a community and family members.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about the big word, the big T.
Yeah. That ends with ma.
We're going to be talking about trauma.
Yeah.
And this is something that I think, I am a psychotherapist and my concentration is trauma. So I do a lot of work with individuals that are working on their trauma, especially childhood trauma. And it is scary sometimes to talk about, but once you decide to have the conversation and talk about it, things that didn't make sense or things that you're afraid to talk about or think about, they somehow, having this conversation brings the pieces together.
Yes.
So we're not trying to solve the trauma or fix it. We're just trying in this episode to bring awareness to it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay? Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about trauma. And before we do, it's just something that we definitely have to highlight. Like, we as a Latino community are so strong. We have so much strength. we have so much resilience. We have beautiful stories of struggles and how we have been able to pick ourselves up and really take care of not only ourselves, but our community. So being Latina is, for me, it's just so much pride. I have a lot of pride about being Dominican, about being Latina. I have a lot of pride of the culture. I also have a lot of pride of my family story of how they migrated to this country.
Beautiful story, by the way.
Absolutely. But during those process, right, the reason why we are so strong and we have so much resilience is because of all of the challenges that we went through, that our ancestors went through, that our parents went through, that we continue to go through living in the United States as Latinos. So, yes, those are challenges that made us strong, right, and resilient and all that. But we have to talk about how that impacted us as individuals, emotionally, mentally.
Yeah.
And physically, too, in every way. Yeah.
Absolutely. So in order for us to embrace those experiences, we also have to embrace la lucha and how it impacted us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So why don't we talk a little bit before we even jump into this trauma thing, right? I think we need to talk a little bit about the experiences, the strength that we have witnessed in our family.
Yeah.
And the resilience. Right?
And it's been a lot. I mean, they all have their own stories.
Mm-hmm.
My mother has her story, you know, my parents, all, my aunts, uncles, grandpa, grandma, our great aunts, you know, from both our father and mother sides. They all come with so much, like, roots of things that they experience, the trauma, the good, the bad. And there's so much that we didn't even know we were going to be affected. They didn't know we were going to be affected by any of those things. So it just carried through generations. And for us to know these stories help us with our own stories.
Yeah. And it's not even, you know, if you think about it, a lot of is they themselves don't even know that it's trauma. Because it's just a cycle that's been, you know, going down from generation to generation. We decided, like, there's something going on and we're going to put a stop. We're not going to continue that cycle with our kids or our family. And we did the work, which is hard, so that we can begin a different cycle.
Yeah.
So, you know, they didn't, I don't think you can't even say, like, they don't even know that it is, like, that they're just passing down trauma.
No.
They're just doing what they've been taught.
There's no awareness because, again, like their past, with all they've experienced, right? They had to, there's a lot of things that they didn't want to remember. They didn't even talk about what they went through. Then they have their children, and those children are thinking that behavior is completely normal. That environment's normal. So everybody's trickling down through generations of these things, and they think it's all okay.
Yeah. That's generational trauma, right? So even, because if we were to talk about generational trauma and everything that creates the trauma, we'll be here like overnight.
A few days.
Yeah, days.
But, you know, it's just keeping in mind that, first of all, we're not even thinking about our parents, right? We're thinking about our ancestors. Slavery. We're thinking about colonial times, right? So right there, our ancestors, they lived trauma. And then if we start thinking about our parents, even like if you think about the reason behind why they decided to leave their country and migrate to a different country, there's struggles there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they come here and it's not the simple American dream, right? They deal with lots of challenges, racism, they deal with discrimination, they deal with immigration, like
oppression,
oppression and
Financial
everything.
issues.
Financial issues, the language, right?
The language barrier.
Oh, yes,
That's a big one.
Yes. So they are already on survivor mode. And they're raising kids, children, we as first generation on survivor mode. Survivor mode of how we're going to take care of you guys and how we're going to survive in this country. And for many of us, some of our parents even had families in their country that they also needed to take care
Oh
of.
yes,
Yes.
yes. So they provide. So you're their main provider. You're sending belongings. You're sending food, money.
You're sending money.
Yeah. So, in some of our cases, we had parents that had 3-4 jobs. We had parents that were in such a huge survivor mode to survive and feed and take care of their family that the emotional connection was just so difficult to provide to themselves and to their children.
Oh yes, absolutely.
They were drained, they were tired, they were on survivor mode. So sometimes we as first generation don't like to talk about trauma because we honor all the hard work that our parents did. And yes, they did amazing work. But because of all of that trauma they were dealing with, sometimes because of their experiences, we also had those experiences.
Yeah.
And sometimes they were not able to be fully present for us. Like, they didn't know, for me, like, my parents didn't know the educational process, like the school districts and which is the best school for Jesse, and they didn't know any of that, right? They didn't know much about emotionally sort of like having conversations with me, like how you're doing, how, you know what I mean? Like,
How you feeling today?
how you feeling? Yeah, it was like, comiste, fuiste a la escuela, estudiaste, hiciste la
bañaste.
tarea, te bañaste.
Then you're good.
You're
Yeah.
good. You're breathing. You
Good.
have a
You're
roof
alive.
under your and you're eating. Those are huge. You have a roof.
Roof, clothing, and food.
Yes.
That
Without that,
was
you're okay.
You're winning.
Emotional, we can't do that right now.
We don't have that space.
We don't have the time. We don't have the bandwidth to hold space for that. You know.
And they were also struggling with their own emotional needs. I can't imagine moving to another country where I don't know the language and I don't know anyone and I'm trying to raise a family.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't even imagine doing that.
Yeah. It's insane. I when I think about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, how did they do it? How did grandma and grandpa come into this country with children and they were all like spread out, working, school, like whatever they were doing? How can she keep up with everybody's emotional state of mind? Impossible.
Yeah. And in our culture, it's like we as a community, as people, Latin America, we have been dealing with a lot of history of wars, political movements, and even other historical events. And ongoing, we still struggle with that in our countries. So when we talk about trauma, I know that many of us focus on trauma as being sexual abuse, physical abuse, and those are big traumas, right? They are traumas. But, they've done lots of research, and they have lots of evidence that migrating to this country creates trauma.
And I totally can see it. I don't, there's no argument
First
there.
generation deals with trauma.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be talking a little bit about that. That's what we're going to focus on. Because I think it's important. This is, especially if you're listening to this podcast because you want to tap into going through the journey of finding yourself, your authentic self, understanding why you do certain things and say certain things and behave certain way. This is all connected.
Yeah. Yeah. That self-discovery is real, you know, and figuring that out really helps you figure out, even like knowing your family story, which is how we started. That story, what happened? Oh, so this is where this stems from. This, the way I behave, the way I handle this emotion, like anger or sadness or whatever it is that that's all connected.
Yeah, it's crucial, at least in my opinion. And this is not, I'm not a therapist or like an expert. I am just speaking from my opinion and the work that I did. For me, in order for me to be in the place that I'm at now, it was crucial for me to do trauma work. Like I had to, because, like I said in the first episode, I was carrying a lot of shit with me. There was a lot of limited beliefs that I was holding on to, that I was walking with. I was just feeling very terrible about myself. And when I started my therapy journey, it started with talk therapy. And in talk therapy, I was able to talk about the way that I was feeling and bring awareness to how I was feeling. And that took me to a point. And then, my trauma was deep. So talk therapy wasn't enough. And I had to go into shadow work or inner child work, trauma work, to really understand the root. Where did these thoughts or these beliefs come from? Because they were with me for so long that they became my identity.
Yeah, they became a part of
And
you.
it's not who I was, but they became my identity. And I had to do that work in order for me to know where these things were coming from. And I had to work with my 5-year-old self, with my 9-year-old self, with my 13-year-old self, my teenage self, even like my 21, 22, self. And I had to work with those parts of me, heal those parts of me, parent them the way that they needed to be parented in order for me to start embracing my true authentic self and not feel so shitty about myself. Not feel so crappy about myself. So worthless. I felt very worthless.
And if you think about it, all those steps, because there's a lot. We're not going to sugarcoat this process at all. It takes a lot out of you. But when we say that we are sharing these experiences and bringing up the word trauma, right? It's a process that's so worth it. You don't want to carry those things forever. That shit becomes way too heavy. It's too heavy to carry. And this is why awareness is so important. It's so detrimental right now, the amount of things that people are carrying. So bringing up these topics mean a lot to us, because we do this to share with you that it's possible, one, and two, that we are not experts, so we are very happy to share with you our experiences, right, through this, so you can figure out what your niche is, what you can do to help yourselves.
And going back to what you said, another thing that really helped me was when I started doing this work, you go through like a roller coaster of emotions where you feel so many different things about not only yourself, but even like the people that took care of you, the adults in your life, not only your parents or other, like, it could be like I had emotions for my parents, of course, like there was some anger and stuff like that. My sisters are much older than me. When I was working through myself, there was some anger towards them because it felt like I felt very alone as a child. But then when you start talking to these people and questioning them about their lives, and they start telling you things, you also you start to find empathy.
Yes.
And you start to kind of like also heal that relationship with them also. So a lot of people might be afraid of doing this work because they're like, you know, I love my parents. I don't want to hate my parents. You're not going to.
No.
You're not going to hate your parents. Your parents are still going to be great. Your parents, you know, my parents were great. I love my parents to death. You know, yes, there were moments that I was angry at them as I got deeper and I discovered things. But then I found ways of healing that and still finding so much love. And I understand why my parents did a lot of the things that they did. And when you become a parent and you're juggling raising a child, living life, being an adult that's hard as shit, paying bills and this and that and working, you understand sometimes it is hard to hold emotional space for another human, especially a child that requires so much emotional strength and, you know, support from you.
Yeah.
And that's crazy too, because once you like start having this connection with these people, right? You start making time to kind of get to know them as adults, and you talk to them about their story. Like you get to know them. Like besides having that gratitude, you can start connecting. Okay, oh, so you learned this from your mother. You learned this from this other person. So I can try to change it and break that cycle.
Yes.
So
That is so true, right? Like, so many people are so afraid to do this work because they're afraid, like, what's going to happen to my relationship with my parents. And in many cases, it actually becomes healthier and stronger. And you do start having more empathy with their story, because for most of us and most of our stories, our parents did not wake up one morning and was like, I'm going to create trauma for my son or my daughter. Right? No, it just doesn't happen that way. Sometimes with emotional trauma, they're not even realizing that they're doing it, especially if it's something that they went through. There was not that emotional support for them when they were growing up. And another piece is that sometimes it's not even our parents. That's another piece, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like sometimes it's trauma in school, being bullied, you know, siblings, teachers. Like there's just so much that it's just so much that impacts you, your childhood, that impacts your adult life. That one thing for sure is, you know how they say in Vegas, whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? That does not happen in childhood. It comes with you as an adult. It follows you. So why don't we talk a little bit about our discoveries when we started doing our trauma work? Like, you don't have to go into full details if you don't want to, but something that maybe you would want our listeners to take and maybe use your experience to find ways of how they can also find ways to take care of themselves or start doing the work.
I laugh because I did probably the most ridiculous of things. I've done some crazy things through my healing. So it's just hilarious because it was like I was dedicated to figure out what was wrong with me. Like I was like, I'm done recycling the same amount, like things, people, and and just situations, and going back to the same feeling because I kept on making the same mistakes. And you just get over it, and I hit that point. So I have tried so many different things, but what has helped me a lot is I started these like 40-day challenges where they offer, you know, either with yoga, or I did a Kundalini 40-day healing trauma.
Like a Kriya.
Yeah. And it started with that. Just starting like consistency in something, you know, showing up for myself. I started reading more. I think everything consisted on me staying consistent. Can I do this for 40 days? Can I start challenging myself? So once I started doing that and showing up, of course, this took time. So I had to wake up like at 5 o'clock for these things sometimes. I had to do certain like meditation practices. You start doing all these different things and it helps you. Mm-hmm. I couldn't believe it was helping me, but it was helping me. And I wanted more and more of it. And you just stayed like on track with that. And for yoga, doing my yoga helped me a lot. And I also read this book called La Diosa by Gutierrez, which was amazing. And that has like a whole shadow work cover
has
to
like
cover
prompts and stuff like that.
Prompts on what to do. And it was that was wonderful, by the way. Coming from a Latina, sharing this, because when I was searching up like healing and how to deal with my traumas and where it stems from, most of it was written by white but authors and people that instructed these things were not as relatable. So when I started following Gutierrez and I started seeing this book, she started a new book, and I was like, I've got to try this. And I was very dedicated. I went as far as getting the book and the audio book so I can hear her and also follow the prompts. Like I was like so deep into this discovery of myself and trying to figure out what's going on with me. And most of it was from generational trauma. Most of it was being first generation. And that discovery was needed because I was angry with my parents. I was very upset because I blamed them for a lot. And having compassion for them and learning more about them and talking to them really helped me understand what was going on and why they did the things they have done and made the choices that affected me. So that was my journey.
Yeah. I've talked a lot about like how my journey started and my shadow work, and what really like pushed me was, of course, wanting to get deeper. I was so tired of like carrying all these things.
Yeah.
Of feeling the way that I was feeling. I was just tired of it. I was tired. And then I became a mother, and then I was scared of passing that down. So that was what really was pushed me into that doing shadow work, which was so amazing for me. And again, like you said, my trauma was not only because my parents were not like emotionally available for me. That's part of it. But I had trauma from school. I was born in New York, and when I was 5, my parents left to DR. And all my sisters stood here, you stood here, and they left. And they took me. I remember being 5 and not wanting to go. And I lived there till half of 5th grade, and then out of nowhere, my parents decided to come back here. And now I know no English. I'm in a school with a terrible teacher, who made me feel, who isolated me, and just felt so alone. My 9-year-old felt so alone. Like there were so many grown-ups in my life, and nobody noticed me. And I was going through so much. There was a point where I stopped eating. I remember this, and my mom was going crazy because she was like, I wasn't eating anything. Y yo me puse flaquita. And my mom would take me to doctors, and everything was fine with me. And we were talking about that while I was doing my shadow work, me and my mom. And I said, I need to explore this. And it turned out that when I explored it, it was that there was nothing physically wrong with me. But I was depressed. At 9 years old, I was depressed, and I felt out of control. I wasn't regulated, and the only thing that I could control was what I put in my mouth, and I decided not to put anything in my mouth. And I started eating because my mom was like, you started to eat. One day, estábamos en la sala, and I just started crying because I thought you were going to die. Y Dios hizo un milagro. And you started eating. And I realized with my therapist, it's like, no, you felt guilt and you started eating again. You know? So my biggest fear was bringing that into my son. Having my son go to school and feeling isolated, feeling less than, having a teacher that treated him like less. That was the big fear. So every time I would talk about that, I would start crying. Because my 9-year-old would just come out and would start crying. I worked with her a lot. And let me tell you, when you work with a part of you, you make them stronger. Because pre-K was a challenge this year. Because my son, as you guys know, has sensory issues, and we had a pretty, not the best situation in school in terms of his class. So it was a hard year. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And I think you said, Jesse, you were like, because I've had meetings with teacher and everything. She was like, you were like, maybe you should write an email, include everybody. And I was like, I don't know if I should do it. And let me tell you, my 9-year-old self came out, and she wasn't sad. Or no, she was angry. And she was like, I felt her presence. You need to fight for this kid. You need to write that email. She has so much power. She has so much power.
Yes.
And let me tell you, I wrote that email. I CC everybody in that school. I was like, no, So doing this work, there have been moments that I've discovered things about me that I did not know. I didn't know I was depressed at 9 years old. I was depressed as a teenager. I did not know that I was depressed for most of my childhood. And, discovering that and discovering where my anger, comes from, and working with each part individually has made them stronger. And sometimes when I feel them, I can feel their strength. Like I know, my 9-year-old is a strong little girl now.
Yeah.
And that was important because I feel like it made me a better human. It made me a better wife. It made me a better mom. And I feel so much better about myself. I'm not going to say that of course I have fears. Fear is normal. People are so afraid of fear. Oh, I'm supposed to fear. Fear is just an alert. It's alerting you to something. The problem is when you decide to live your life in fear and you let fear rule your life. But if you're afraid about something and you explore it and then you release it, there's nothing wrong with that. So yes, I do feel fear at times, like having my business and having my clients. There's fear, like things are going so well. What if I lose it? But that's just, I'm not living in that. I feel really good about myself, and even on days that I might not feel real great about myself, it passes. You know what I mean?
It doesn't linger the way it used to.
Yeah, exactly.
I know
it's just, it's a day.
It doesn't control your life.
Exactly. It's not, I know that it's not that I don't identify as a shitty person on days that I don't feel good. It's just today I'm not feeling it.
Maybe I started even saying I'm low energy today.
Yeah, I'm not feeling it today. I'm not feeling it.
Which for many of us, that's even hard to say, right? Like I'm low energy. I'm not feeling it today, because for many of us, we were raised that there's no such thing. Like you shouldn't have low energy. You shouldn't be bored. You should be always active. You need to brush things. Just brush it off. There's no time to cry.
Yeah.
All of this, right? Like there's no time to cry. There's no time to feel bad. Like, oh, I'm doing me. What does that mean? I'm doing me.
I don't know. I probably used that too, and I don't know if I meant it. I don't know what it means. I'm doing me. Whatever.
What does that mean? I'm doing me, right? Like you can put yourself first. You can set boundaries. You can have low energy and still do it in a loving, kind, healthy way.
Yeah. And passing down these new things to our children.
Yes.
It's,
that is so important.
Yes.
I'm very honest with my child. Like, cuando hay un día that or a moment let's say that I'm down, not like depressed, down, but like tired, just don't have the energy to deal with stuff. And let's say he wants something, porque he's always losing stuff, y no sabe buscar nada. Mama, I need help with this, mama.
Yo creo que ninguno saben.
I'll tell him, I'll be like, you know what, Mateo? I need 5 minutes. My energy is very low, and I do not have the ability to hold any space right now for you or anybody.
Yeah.
I need it. I'm sorry.
And that's okay.
And
he'll learn that.
Exactly.
He'll learn to say those things and again, these are what we struggle with. And you brought up something that's so important when it comes to like trauma. And I remember having trauma from school as well, because I didn't have that support in the school or my teacher. I believe we had the same teacher. There you go. She was fantastic. No. So, and then not having someone to advocate for me, and speak up for me when I needed that. And it has a lot to do with, they're immigrants that come into this country. They don't think they have these rights, or they're not able to speak up for themselves.
Right.
Or
they don't know the system. They don't understand the system.
Yes.
They're very afraid to, create any chaos.
Yes, they're very worried
Right.
about that.
To create any chaos.
Don't be too
Yes.
too out there.
Yeah. So
So if the teacher's calling you an idiot, she's like, stop being an idiot.
Yeah.
You need to stop being una estúpida. No sé inútil. Stuff like that. And it's not healthy for a child to hear that, but they don't know any better. Yeah. So I struggle with those things too. And I struggle with a lot of eating disorder, overeating, emotional eating. And it was like so much. And these things make you realize, like, all your stages, like even when I was pregnant, I was the postpartum depression, not having the support. And something that I remember just today, that both my partner at the time was going through his own PTSD, and I'm going through postpartum, and we're here raising this child with both of us first generation
and first time parents,
with our parents not knowing like how to help us either, because this is not something that we talk about.
Yeah, no, I remember when Mateo was in the hospital, that was an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
You, in your mind, you're pregnant, your water is going to break, you're going to have a baby, and you're going to come home with your baby. You don't think that you're going to go to get a routine checkup, and then 3 days later, you're going to have an emergency C-section, and your baby's going to stay in the NICU for 66 days. Like, you don't think that. And that was such an emotional roller coaster, and my parents were staying with me. And I remember there were days that I would feel angry. There were days that I wanted to cry. There were days that I would complain. And I couldn't do it in front of them because they would be like, tú no puedes hacer eso. Tú tienes que estar fuerte. El niño está vivo. Tú tienes que estar fuerte. And it's just like, but I'm grateful to my husband because he was the only one that gave me the space for me to cry, for me to be angry, and he didn't stop me. But with my parents, it was hard. They would not. It was all you need to be strong. You need to be strong. You need to be strong.
That is such a big thing for
yeah.
Well, you know what? I used to get angry about that when they used to do that because, I think they did it to all of us. Because when I was going through my whole health situation that we were trying to figure out what was happening with my heart, there were moments where I would cry. There were moments that I believed, like, I'm not going to see my kids become men, right? Like, I don't know what's going to happen to me. And there were those moments where I would feel angry or feel down, and they would say the same thing, like, no, tú tienes que ser fuerte, porque si tú te pones así, ahí es que ese corazón se va a poner más malo. Te tienes que ponerte fuerte.
And that's more anxiety.
So, I used to get angry, and I used to tell my husband, like, they don't get it. I don't understand it. This whole thing, you have to be strong. You have to be strong. And I understand now why they do it. Yeah. So it goes back to the whole, like, I'm not saying for everyone, but for our situation, our parents, the emotional support was never taught to them. If hearing my father's stories, hearing my mom's story, that emotional support and validation, like it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be scared, it's okay to be sad, was never really created. So if you've never gotten that, how do you hold a space for someone else? It becomes so hard and difficult to hold that space.
They don't know how to.
Because you don't know what to say or do.
And they get uncomfortable.
They
with
get
the
so
big
uncomfortable.
emotion.
So they immediately jump to, you got to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
But that's them projecting that on you.
Yeah, they're telling themselves, be strong right now. Oh my God, what is wrong with this person? I don't know how to help them.
Yes. And so when I understood that, then I was able to be like, I am strong. I'm just feeling very sad right now, and it's okay for me to be sad. I don't have to stop crying. You're just not feeling comfortable seeing me cry. And I'm not mad anymore. I understand they don't have those tools.
Yeah.
They don't.
And it took a lot of time for me to realize that, because I had to figure, why am I so freaking mad? Why am I so resentful?
Pero Heidi, déjame decirte algo también. Like, for me, right, like my own trauma, like when you say que ellos se fueron para Santo Domingo when you were 5 years old. Cuando ellos se fueron, yo tenía como 15 años.
Mm-hmm.
They left a 15-year-old.
With a 24-year-old.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
That was really traumatic for me.
And I remember you said you used to call them.
I used to call them, and I used to be like, yo, I want you back. Like, I miss you. Like, I want my parents. And my mother used to be like, bueno, Yesenia, eso tiene solución. Un vuelo para Santo Domingo.
For you to go.
Yeah. And at that time, I got a whole full scholarship to Cathedral High School.
Oh my God.
I was like, I have the scholarship. Like, I'm not going to go to DR. I have a full scholarship of high school. This is a good school.
You had to choose between your education and your parents.
Yeah. So that right there is very traumatic. That's so much inner child work. And me working with my 15, 16-year-old, now I understand where me forcing myself to be in control all the time comes from.
Yeah.
Me trying to be a perfectionist, where it comes from. Those were my survival tools to survive that moment.
Yeah.
That's why it's so hard now as an adult to let go.
I have like OCD because of the same thing, because it's what I have control of.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can organize this, I can keep this clean, I can do this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So even though, that's another thing, and I tell this to my clients all the time. Yeah, we have empathy for them. We understand where they're coming from. We know they didn't wake up one day and became evil. But our story, we don't minimize it.
No.
Absolutely.
It happened and it hurt and it impacted us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We don't minimize it.
It's been like so many stages, and sometimes it's, and like you said, it's sometimes you're like, oh, I healed my 4-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've healed my 9-year-old. Oh shit, I healed my 21-year-old. Hold on, what the fuck is wrong with me all of a sudden? Oh shit, I have to heal my 30-year-old. I'm fucking crazy right now. What's going on with me?
Yeah.
And this is all stages of your life.
All stages.
Stages of your life that you have been impacted by trauma.
Yes.
By something that happened to
Yes.
you. And it's important to figure out why. Because you can't go on, this is going to trickle down to other people around you and yourself.
Absolutely.
And your happiness and your peace, your nervous system. Just bringing up this topic alone, it's like it makes me think about so many stages. And like the DR situation, I think this is something very common for parents to send children or be left.
Or we're gonna leave and you're gonna stay.
One of us is separating though.
Yes.
And I was part of both. I was sent and there was no conversation. And after I got picked up, there was still no conversation. It was like, oh, I'm back in New York, just like you. I forgot how to speak English completely. And I remember everybody, shuki, y yo, what the? Yo no entendía nada. Like, todo el mundo ahí dancing to New Kids on the Block. Yo no sabía nada de esto. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, ¿y qué es esto? I was listening to, like...
Bachata.
It is.
Yeah.
It's hard.
You know, and all this stuff. And you come back and everybody looks more hip and you don't understand. And the style... Yeah. And being made fun of. I didn't really know what I was doing, you know, and I had to like acclimate myself right away into this new life. And then, you know, I finally...
No one gave you an explanation.
Nothing. Nothing. You know, and at that time, my parents were trying to get back together. No, they're not getting back together. My brother was a little terror. My little brother at that time, he's an adult now. But, you know, there was a lot going on. There was no space to have any conversation. And at that time, also, my brother was very asthmatic.
I remember.
Yeah. So my mom would be in the hospital. Everything was my brother. You know, the attention was all him. And I remember one time saying, I wish I had asthma. If I had asthma, I would be looked at, understood, cared for. A child shouldn't be thinking about having a freaking lifelong situation, respiratory issue.
Yeah.
But that was what I wanted, just to get that attention. You know, and separation anxiety from coming, parents here or no parents. Oh, I'm with my grandparents now. Oh, like that's a lot.
That's a lot for a child.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
And when, like you said, when you come, because when I came here, after being in jail for so long, it's like everything changes. You don't know what's going on.
Yes.
And people know that you're not, like, it's hard. You have to get used to everything all over again. You feel less than everybody else because you feel like everybody else is so much cooler. And they know that they're cooler than you.
They do.
I'm so sad. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's you know, doing this work, it just, like, for me, right? And I, once again, like, I do this with my clients. It's like, for me, it's not trying to figure out why I am broken or why, you know, I need to fix myself or whatever the case is. It's more like putting the pieces together of a puzzle. Like, oh, I did that inner child work where I was a teenager and I, you know, those were a time where I felt abandoned. So I had abandonment issues. So how, as a 16-year-old, do you control that? You find ways to control your life, right? You find ways to also be a perfectionist because you want people to think like, oh my gosh, she's so amazing and I don't want her to go. Or I don't want to leave, right? So these are all behaviors that made a lot of sense in that time to do, to cope with what I was going through.
At that moment.
But the funny shit is that if you don't do the work, that comes in your adult relationships.
Yes.
Your romantic relationships, your relationship with your kids.
Yes.
Your relationship with even work, career.
Oh, yes.
Okay? When you do, like, even part of my own trauma was when I was 7-year-old, right? That was a really difficult emotional, mental time for my mom. And my little girl dealt with that. She felt that. And putting the pieces together makes a lot of sense of why sometimes I feel the way that I feel.
And doesn't it, and once you're doing that work, isn't it amazing when you do that, when you make that discovery? You're able to work with that.
Yes, because then it's all of a sudden,
it comes up.
Yes. So when there is this moment of like feeling unloved, or I'm feeling like, you know, I don't know, like I feel like unloved, let's just say, right? It's no longer like, oh, I am unloved because, you know, it's just me. There's something wrong with me. Yeah, I'm unlovable. There's just something wrong with me. There's nothing, I can't do anything right. No, for me, it's like, one of my little kids, one of my little girl is awakening. Something is happening in this space where she's feeling this way. And so then I explore what's happening. Oh, okay. he said this that reminds her a lot about what her mother said or her mother did not say.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so immediately I know how to take care of myself. So it's no longer internalizing, I'm broken, I'm unlovable, I'm no good. It's more of like, something is coming up that reminds my brain, my inner child about my past, and I need to start figuring out what it is.
And when you do this, it's so incredible that what used to cause you possible depression,
Mm-hmm.
right? What used to cause you all these like mental distress no longer takes control of you.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are able to work around that. You're able
Yeah.
to do something that you've learned by showing up, practicing, or, just figuring out exactly where it's coming from to avoid that to come up like that the way it did in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it no longer affects you the way that it used to.
No, it doesn't. You know where it's coming from.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know where it's coming from right away.
So, yeah. If you want to continue to do this work, like if you want to explore generational trauma, your own trauma, there's a couple of good things that we can recommend, right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
start the work. The number one thing is if you want to explore generational trauma, right? That if you are Latino, if you're Dominican, is there. We can't deny it. We can't, right? It's there. If you think about our ancestors and our history, right?
Mm-hmm.
Start by talking to your family about the past.
Mm-hmm.
Ask them questions of the reason why they decided to come to the United States. Start talking about their experiences with war, political movements, religion, religious belief.
Oh my gosh, that's a big
Mhm.
one. Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot of guilt just in that one.
Mm-hmm. Start exploring those histories and those stories about your family, where you come from. That's going to give you a lot of details of even their behavior.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why they do the things that they do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Start thinking, ask them questions about their relationship with their parents. How was emotion handled back then, like when they were sad or angry?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. You will be very surprised. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You will.
Yeah.
And then, ladies, what do you recommend for anyone who wants to do this work? Where should they start?
I would say if you're very new, right, and you want to start doing this self-discovery work, and you haven't done any other kind of work, this is really like the beginning. I will start with regular talk therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I say that's always step one. Regular talk therapy can bring a lot of awareness. It can help you unburden yourself. It can help you realize a lot of things. And then as you decide to go deeper, then trauma work is godsend. It is. Like, trauma work is the best thing that happened to me. It's amazing working with your inner child. It's amazing. I definitely, I think that this work is the only way to really do this work is to go to therapy. You have to go to therapy. You have to talk about the things that you are walking with and the things that you're carrying and get to the bottom of things. And, talk therapy is always step one, and then, you go further. If you've done talk therapy and you feel like there's more, because if there's more, when there's more, then just take the leap. Start the trauma therapy. Start it. It's not going to be easy. It's going to bring up a lot of shit. It's going to be an emotional roller coaster, but you're not going to regret it. You're going to come out stronger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I totally second that, Margaret. We all have to first start accepting that there is, all these behavior or just emotional traumas amongst us, especially, first generation. Therapy would be my number one suggestion. I wish I did it sooner than I did it too, because it would have helped so much if I had awareness. So definitely someone that can help you. Talk therapy, just, start off, because by talking, you're able to hear yourself say these things out loud. This is really what I need right now. So once you've done that, definitely explore, self-help books, even, shadow work is amazing. Shadow work is amazing. So is just showing up to anything that is healthy for your nervous system. Meditation, mindfulness, just stay consistent in anything that you do. Do a lot of reading. That's also helped me a lot. And journaling.
Oh, yeah.
Journaling has saved me in ways, because there's sometimes things that you write about your emotions you don't even know you're having. So just let that pen take over and just write everything, even if it's the most craziest things. Because when you look back, you're like, oh, I was feeling like this. Okay, that was from this. I really need to do something. So, and please, if you have other suggestions, write it down on the comments below, or DM us or email us at no todo se cura con Vex. And share your recommendations if you have, any.
Yeah, absolutely. Because everybody's journey looks completely different. Everyone's experience is different. Everyone's own challenges and traumas are different. So there's just not one recipe for all.
Yeah.
But I do recommend, like, everything that these ladies are sharing, definitely tap into. Number one is self-awareness. Self-awareness is the number one tool. Once you start being aware of the things that are happening, seeing it more of a like being more curious about it in a different perspective, instead of like internalizing it or blaming yourself for it, but being curious about it. Like, oh my God, why did this relationship didn't work out? What's happening? I feel like there's the same pattern. Start being curious about your behaviors, your interactions with others, your interactions with your family. Start asking questions to your family about their history, about their own challenges, their own emotional intelligence, right? That's going to tell you a lot of things. And then the number two thing is, when you start doing the work, learn self-compassion. Self-compassion. This is the way that you're going to be able to continue to do the work and continue to take care of yourself and continue to forgive yourself and accept. So self-compassion is so important. And then number three is jump into the work.
Yeah.
Just jump into the work.
You got this.
You got this. You got this. Please let us know if you have any questions, comments. DM us, email us. I hope that this topic was useful, and it was something that we felt like it was important to talk about. It's like the big elephant in the room, en todo party. Todo el mundo dance around it.
Yeah, yes, that's true. Because we're good at like, no, we don't talk about that.
Aquí no se
se
habla de eso.
Uh-huh.
And in order to, once again, embrace our strength, our resilience, we also have to embrace our pain. We also have to embrace our challenges, and we have to embrace our traumas. We have to be aware of it.
It's
and
our
talk
truth.
about it.
It's our truth.
That's the way we're going to break the cycle.
It's not true what they say. If you don't talk about it, it didn't happen. If it happened, it happened. If you don't talk about it, it's gonna keep showing up.
Your body never forgets.
The body keeps the score.
Oh yes, that's
The
a great
body
book,
keeps
by
the
the way. Great book.
Your nervous system, your body does not forget.
No.
Yes.
Nope.
No. And it shows up in the craziest ways.
Yes.
And before we break free from this episode, she's talking about that one thing, that the body keeping the score. Sometimes you're feeling something and you're like, why did I act this way? And you go back into your space where you feel the safest and you really sit there and you say, oh, this came back again.
Mm-hmm.
It just shows up.
Oh, yeah. Our body constantly is speaking to us.
Every single day.
Every single minute. It lets you know what it likes and does not like.
Yeah.
We are so on the go. And sometimes if you don't know how to emotionally regulate, it is too uncomfortable for you to sit with that discomfort. So that's the one that you got to go. You got to move. You got to do this. You got to do that. There's no moment of staying still.
Yeah.
If you are struggling with that, explore that.
Yes, I've always said that you cannot sit with your thoughts, and you need to either be on the move all the time, or you need to have a TV on, a radio
distraction.
on, a distraction on. Explore that. Why can't you just sit with your thoughts?
Yeah.
Why can't you just sit with your feelings? Why can't you just sit with what's going on in your body?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen. Mic drop.
So address the elephant in the room, in the party, and hopefully you enjoy this episode. We love you once again. Thank you
Yes.
so much for all of the support, and keep watching our YouTube videos
Yes.
And listening
to us.
Download.
Review and rate.
Download, review, rate, follow, subscribe,
De
and
todo.
share.
Hagan de todo.
Share, tell your friends.
Sí.
Síganle, mire. There's these
Ustedes
podcasts.
saben.
These three girls que están acabando. Ponte a oír lo que están bien.
Ponte pa' lo tuyo.
Ponte pa'
Para
lo
lo
tuyo.
tuyo. Listen to this girl. Come on.
Let's do this.
Let's support each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, guys. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.